So it's been a hot minute since my last video, and I imagine you have some questions like, where have you been? Who are you? But I have a better question. What can you buy for 99p? Some popular answers might be a frozen dairy treat, a canned beverage, a stuffed toy cat, or maybe a dog that makes this noise. To be serious though, I know why you clicked on the video, and it is true, I did get an iMac for 99p. Or at least I hope I have. At the time of recording, it's not actually been posted yet. This isn't just out of the blue either, so I've had quite a lot of success with Apple products in the past, including iPods, MacBooks, Mac Minis. Sometimes they need minimal repair, but they can go for quite cheap. So the idea here was that I would try and fix up this cheap iMac. Spoiler alert, it turned out a little more expensive than I expected. However, I didn't want to scrap the video, just because I thought, well, I haven't made a video in so long, and I'd like to get something out about how these iMacs can be reused. So I did read through the description, and it pretty much does state that it spares the repairs. Now, I was hoping at this point the cable was quite hard to find, because it says there's no power cable, but on arrival, yeah, it did turn out to be a standard, what we call in the UK, a kettle lead, or a standard computer lead. Anyway, I'll hand this back to Past Sam, who will unbox the 99p iMac. So, a few days later, believe it or not, after an ominous message about some packing peanuts, it actually did arrive, and this shocked me a little bit. Oh, that's a lot of packing peanuts. They weren't kidding. So I proceeded into the pool of packing peanuts, sweeping them back inside to try and keep them away from the dog. Oh my god, oh, the dog, no. No. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Don't eat any packing peanuts, Luna. So I proceeded onwards in this fashion, but it became immediately apparent that unfortunately there was no way of keeping the peanuts in the box because there were so many. Alright, we're going to have a lot of trouble with the dog. I'm going to have to... No, Luna, no. Drop the peanut! Wow. So the unit itself looked to be in decent shape. I did have a quick look around it and I noted the screen looks like it's been half separated. When I did take this apart later on, there is a layer of RF shielding, actually, which is stuck into the iMac, and that hadn't been moved, so good chance no one's actually been in it properly. So I've had to cut out quite a bit of footage. I've spent the last 2 weeks or so troubleshooting the Mac, looking up screens, seeing what I can do. There's a couple of issues. Basically, a screen is more money than buying a replacement Mac of the same spec or better, really. And also, this is a PowerPC iMac, which I didn't know at the time. Nothing wrong with PowerPC, I do like it. It's basically the older Apple processor they used. But for the purposes that I want this for, it's not going to meet the criteria, sadly. That isn't to say this Mac would be of no use to anybody. You could connect a secondary display and it would work just fine. But for my purposes, and for completing the video, I decided to actually go on and see if I could get another cheap iMac. And find one I did. It turns out they're very prevalent on the E of Bay, and if you do want to find an iMac just for a little project, they're still quite cheap considering. I know the last one was 99p, that was spares or repairs. This is certified working and $29.99 delivered, which I don't think is terrible at all. It looks okay, it's got a bit of a nick on the screen, but I reckon we can do something with this one, and because it's x86, I can definitely run the software I want to. Speaking of software, I do have a sealed copy of Mac OS X. This one's out of date, this iMac won't update to the newest version, so I'll have to install something else, in fact, to run software that I want. So I'm going to grab a copy of Fedora Linux with the LXDE spin, should be nice and lightweight, and we'll wait for the package to arrive. So I waited about a week, and eventually nothing had been updated on eBay, so I messaged the seller and just asked for some tracking information. What happened then was I had a notification it had just been dispatched, and then they gave me the tracking info, so I had to wait a few more days to receive it, unfortunately. Now, when it did arrive, it was packaged kind of strangely. It was wrapped up all in bubble wrap and wasn't in any kind of box. But it looked, initially to be okay. So I unwrapped it, which took me an embarrassingly long time. I think it was packaged quite well, and I'm also not very well coordinated, so I sped this up quite a lot. And then we can get a good look at the iMac. So on first impressions, it actually looks okay, looks a bit dirty in places. The CD drive looked fine. The front bezel on first inspection looked pretty good. All the buttons looked okay. I say all the buttons, there's only one. But you'll see in a moment, I noticed unfortunately it had been damaged in transport, which is a shame. This is entirely cosmetic. I think some of the frame is bent in there as well. I've had a good look in there. But on switching it on, the iMac does still work. So I messaged the seller just to say, hey, unfortunately it got damaged in transport. I realise it's probably not your fault, although it wasn't in a box. The seller was kind enough to say to me, okay, we're sorry about this, kind of acknowledging it's the packaging company's fault. But they offered to issue me a £10 refund, which I was happy to accept because I got to keep a working iMac, and it took my budget down by another £10, which means this iMac effectively was $19.99. So I think the question on everyone's mind is now, what will I do with the iMac? What am I going to do with it? I could take it back in time to the 90s to my office colleagues, and they'd be quite impressed. But no, I'll be doing something called Digimode, which is a type of communication with ham radio that requires software to run. Having an all-in-one PC like the iMac will be really handy because it saves a lot of space, as I'll show in a minute. So you'll see earlier in the video I recommended using Fedora for this. Now when I tried to install that, I couldn't actually get it to recognise it as a boot media with USB or CD, and it turns out they can be quite finicky when it comes to 64-bit. I think the CPU is 64-bit, but nevertheless, I looked around at what my alternatives were, and there's not too many. Now, on this channel before I've recommended Linux Mint, and it turns out they're doing a Debian edition of this, and Debian still supports 32-bit. So, in fact, I'm going back to Linux Mint to run the software I need to. Which reminds me, we shall look in upon the fate of the iMac. Once probably used for office work or perhaps image editing, and now it's relegated to Digimode, sadly. So this is the finished setup. It's not entirely complete. Linux still needs a boot CD. I've messed up the install somehow, but I can reinstall it at some point. So you can see I've got my radio on the left there. That's connected up to an antenna in my yard. And then I've got the iMac next to that. They're connected together, and I can receive signals through this software and transmit what I want to back as well. So for the purposes of what I want to do, the iMac actually is pretty good. I would say if you wanted to use this for anything more than what I'm doing with it, you probably would want to put an SSD into it. They aren't too difficult to open, but it's not easy either, so you can look up a guide, there's plenty of videos on it. Now, you probably could use some more RAM as well if you wanted to do more with it. It's only got 1GB, but to be honest, Linux Mint on Debian, it runs perfectly fine for what I want to do anyway. It's a shame about that crack, but ultimately I could find another bezel online, or I could run into one and I could replace it. The first thing that comes off on these is the front bezel, so potentially it could be fixed, but it is functional. I'm not too concerned about how the shack looks here. It's not perfect, there are cables around. So for now, this is how it's going to look. So the ultimate question is, was it worth it? The 99p iMac is a PowerPC iMac. That in itself is interesting and fun to play with if you've never done that before. The screen, you could come across another screen in an auction listing, or again, you could find one out in the wild. And if there's a working screen on a broken one, then you could swap it out. You could use an external monitor. It was 99p, so it's hard for me to say it wasn't worth it. I did cut out a lot of footage. I tried to order a screen, it was the wrong type of screen. There's always a learning curve when you're buying something new that you don't understand. You can do a bit of research behind it and find out, what do you need to do. For the £20 iMac, and again, I thought it was £30 to begin with, but it got damaged. Even at £30, the fact it's working, the fact it runs the software I need, is fantastic. The other aspect of it is, obviously, it's not gone to a landfill. It's not gone to be stripped down for parts or whatever else. So as long as I'm preserving that part of history, I'm quite happy. I can't save everything, but there again, where I can do stuff, I will. Thanks so much for watching to this point. If you want to see more videos like this, please let me know. I'm always tinkering with stuff, and I can record it. It takes a lot of time. I've been doing YouTube on and off for years and years now. It does feel good to be getting a video back out. But yeah, let me know what you liked or what I can improve on. Thanks very much.